It seems as if moms are just extremely mean to their daughters. And I've heard people who's not related to me say this. I've seen it on TV where for some reason the woman in her 20s or 30s has her mother just nitpicking at her and driving her insane. So like, why is that? I don't get it.
Welcome to the NOIRPOISED podcast, where wisdom is power is more than just a motto.
It's our way of life.
Welcome back, guys. So last episode, we talked about what we were supposed to talk about, mother-daughter issues and father-son issues and competitions. The conversation went astray and we focused a lot on the father-son dynamic. So we're doing a part 2 or just a new episode with the focus on mother-daughter issues. So let's get right back into it.
Yeah, we did get carried away.
I think it had to do with the physical aggression thing.
But to piggyback what I last left off with, to summarize, it seems as if moms are just extremely mean to their daughters. And I think you were saying how, mothers want their daughters to be the best, just like fathers want their sons to be the best.
Right.
But and it could be because I'm around a lot more women than I am men, but sometimes it seems unnecessary. And I've heard people who's not related to me say this. I've seen it on TV where for some reason the woman in her 20s or 30s has her mother just nitpicking at her and driving her insane. So like, why is that? I don't get it.
That's always hard to answer, honestly. I feel like it's a lot, but I really do think it has more to do with the mother than it does with the daughter.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily that the daughter's doing anything wrong in most cases. I really believe that the mom either had a rough upbringing and she doesn't know any other way. So she's following in the footsteps of what she knows and what her parents did. It could be because of her upbringing, she thinks she's doing right by her children by being so tough so they don't have to walk the same path as her.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch of other things, honestly, but ultimately, I do think it has to do with internal unhealed issues. And I had mentioned this in the last episode, and I think it's similar in this scenario too. I think it's mainly she hasn't healed. And because she hasn't healed, she's unconsciously passing on her unhealed issues to her child. And now that child or that daughter has to deal with it.
But why the daughter and not the son?
Well, it happens with the son too, but it's rougher on the daughter, similar to what I told you last episode. Because she's a woman, she has a better understanding of what the world is going to be for that girl.
Yeah.
So it's always going to seem like she's rougher on the daughter because she understands the experiences of a woman.
Yeah.
She doesn't understand the experiences of a man. Similarly to when you hear parents of a son say the dad is so rough on the son and the mom is just like, relax, like it's rough. It's hard to watch a dad train a young boy becoming a man. And I think it's similar. There are a lot of societal pressures and there are a lot of expectations that a woman is going to have to deal with that maybe the mother feels like she has to prepare her daughter early on. So like as a Haitian growing up, men were not in the kitchen. Boys, boys got to go watch TV and the girls is like, come clean this chicken, come cut this turkey up. Like it's little things like that because she understands that this is going to be the expectation when you become a woman, when you're a mom and a wife. This is unfortunately the expectation that people have of women. In a nutshell, that is part of it. But again, I really do think it's just unhealed issues that she hasn't dealt with. And unfortunately, I mean, I don't know if it's everybody, but I think Caribbean people often don't deal with their traumas. They don't deal with the issues that they had in childhood. And sometimes they don't even recognize it.
Yeah.
Like they don't even recognize that their experience was not a normal experience because it's so common. Like the generations prior to us in Caribbean homes, they're so focused on survival that they never really had the time or even cared to process the mental and emotional aspect. And we talked about this in the millennial episode where we recognize that this is a new type of thing. Realizing like, oh, this is how my childhood affected me here and this is why I do this. They don't think that way. So to them, it's just like, I'm just preparing you for the future.
Right.
At least that's what they think. Because that's another thing. I don't think they prepare us for the future. They think they're preparing us. Yeah, it's a whole nother conversation. They think they're preparing us to the best of their ability, but they're really not. But at the end of the day, it's all they know.
Yeah.
But with the mother-daughter dynamic, I think part of it is also she wants her daughter sometimes to be like her. Either be like her or be what she couldn't be.
Yeah.
If I'm thinking of the elderly women that I know, I think that's mainly what it is. They feel like they didn't have certain opportunities and didn't get to do certain things. So they want their child to be able to do everything they didn't get to do.
Yeah.
But they don't stop to recognize that the child is an individual and they're not a mini you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like little things like, my mom says she always wanted to play the piano. So I was in piano lessons at like 7.
Yeah.
And I was forced to continue to go until I was a teenager. And I told her, like, I'm actually not learning much anymore. Like, I need a new teacher. But it's little things like that they'll put you in and expect you to excel in it because they like it.
Yeah.
But they don't stop to hear if the child is actually interested in it. So, yeah. And I mean, realistically, I'm low-key doing it not in the same way, but like I think at a young age, I think it's okay to do that. I think you're supposed to expose children to things because I plan on putting my daughter in piano lessons because I like the piano too. But if she comes to a point and she's just like, yeah, I'm not into it, I'm not going to force her. And I think that's the difference with some of the mother-daughter conflicts is in a situation like that, the mother would force the child to continue doing it. Yeah. And it may start with something as small as piano lessons when she's 5, but when she's 10, it changes to something different. When she's 15, it's different. Yeah. When she's 20, it's different. When she's 30, it's different. Yeah. And that dynamic just never changes. So ultimately, I think the mom just doesn't learn how to respect the daughter as an individual and understand that she's going to be her own person and she's going to develop into her own woman, not a woman who's your daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
We briefly spoke about this on a previous episode where when fathers push their son is to prepare them for the world, right? So whether it's in...
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. Whether it's in sports, in school, in education, no matter what, you could kind of tie it into what the father's seeing in the future. Like, I'm not going to let you quit sports now because I don't want you to be a quitter. You know, I'm not going to let you be a punk now because people are going to take advantage of you. So you can kind of tie into why the father's doing it. So when he does get harsh, I think in the back of the mind of the boy, he's like, I see why, I know why you're doing this. In your opinion, how are mothers tough on their daughters and how do they tie it into something in the future? Because it sounds like what you just mentioned, boys get to, watch TVs and in Caribbean households and the girls have to be in the kitchen. I can get how they're tying that to the future, but I'm wondering in other ways, how are moms being tough on their daughters for the benefit of their future?
Well, just that, to be honest with you, not just that, but that exactly. It's examples like that. Like growing up for me, it was a common thing. If you Haitian, as a girl, there's no playtime on Saturday mornings. It was just like, you go to school Monday to Friday, Saturday bright and early, we cleaning up the house. The whole house got to be spotless. I don't know if it's that way for sons. I don't think it is. But as a Haitian young girl, that was a thing. Like every Saturday morning, you woke up and you had to spot clean the entire house, bathrooms and everything, laundry, so on. Like those are things that the world expects from a woman. When you go into a marriage or a relationship and you become a mom, those are some responsibilities that naturally fall on the woman unless you have an understanding man who's willing to help out. So it may seem tough when you're doing it to a 7-year-old, waking up a 7-year-old at like 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning, knowing that she was waking up early Monday to Friday. But I think in the mom's mind, she's thinking, I'm preparing you so you understand that you have to keep your house tidy. This is your responsibility. And you should do it at a time where, at least for me, I think we did it at that time because then you had the rest of the Saturday to do other things in a sense. That example is similar to the whole father-son thing. Yeah. It's preparing. It just seems harsh because it's not the reality for you. Yeah. Just like for a woman, if I see you toughen up a boy, I'm gonna be like, can you be a little bit more gentle? Yeah. But you understand that because you're a man. And I think it's similar. So it may look rough or like unfair, But I think in the mother's mind, and it is low-key unfair, because at the end of the day, these are like survival skills. That's another conversation, but these are survival skills that everyone should know how to do. But I understand in the Caribbean household how it's specifically the woman, only the woman kind of situation. But
that's what you saw growing up, like it was only the females.
Absolutely. Men didn't clean. Did your dad clean?
I know, but my brother and I were required to do that.
At what age though?
Young age, like kids.
You sure? Because I've heard your dad say that, like, every time your sister would be around, he'd be like, "Go, your mom's calling you.
He
go,
would
go,
say
go." But
that,
he wouldn't say that to you and your brother.
Yeah, but my mom would say that to my brother and I. Yeah.
Well, kudos to your mom. Good job, mommy. But the reality is that doesn't usually happen.
Yeah.
There's times as the young boy grows up, like he'll probably like sweep or something. You know what I mean? It's not at the same level is what I'm saying. It's never at the same level. Like I told you, it was an every Saturday thing consistently. And this didn't stop until I became an adult and I decided when I wanted to clean kind of situation. It wasn't like, oh yeah, it's for a year or two I'm training. No, this is your life as a Haitian kid. You wake up every Saturday morning. There are literally videos online illustrating this. Like, y'all know. But it's something that they believe that will instill that habit within you. So when you go into your own home, you carry that on. And it's the same concept with cooking. It's the same concept with laundry. It's the same concept with like appearance and how you carry yourself, like having to dress up and stuff like that. Like little things like that they do. I think it's in their mind. I believe they really think they're prepping us for the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would it be safe to say, well, let me ask you this, and I'm wondering if everyone else could relate to, but did you find it that the average conflict between mother and daughter starts during the teenage years? And if so, like, why is that the case? Because it sounds like from what I've seen online, once a girl starts hitting the teenage years, similarly to what we said about father, it sounds like once they at a certain age, that's when you start having to, deal with certain things. It seems like during the teenage years, that's when it starts. And then into adult years, it's just a continuation of what it was during the teenage years. Is that your experience?
I could believe that. I feel like conflict, I can believe that because teenage years is when a woman's going through puberty or a young girl's going through puberty. And in this day and age, it's getting younger and younger. So it really depends on the female.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you're both going through hormonal changes. And depending on when the mother had the child, she's also going through drastic hormonal changes, such as like menopause symptoms and stuff. So you have to consider those things as well. The hormones playing a factor. Especially for the young girl who's going through these changes and doesn't have a mom to be empathetic to those changes and explain those changes and have grace. A lot of times moms, at least what I've seen, I can't say it to everyone because there are great moms who don't do this, but what I've seen is the mom just starts to throw comments like, you got an attitude, you're changing up, you used to be this way, you're not this way anymore, instead of trying to comprehend what changes she may be facing or what pressures she may be dealing with outside of the home.
Yeah.
Because it's little things like, you go into 6th grade, some girls have breasts, some girls don't. You don't know what your daughter who don't have breasts may be experiencing when she goes to school and comes back home and what she may be dealing with emotionally, you know what I mean? And the same for the one who does have breasts a little bit sooner. You don't know what she may be dealing with emotionally because we have to admit that society places a lot of pressure on young girls at a very young age to look a type of way.
Right.
And so that plays a very big role in the puberty age. And going through that and not having an empathetic mother can often start the conflicts, and it continues because then you build resentment almost.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like a time where you're supposed to have your mom be the softest with you, she's the roughest. So in a situation like that, you're like, I can't even trust you now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Similar to what we said about the young boy, where like at the time you need your parent, they're not there. So now you have to figure it out on your own, right? So she has to figure it out on her own, learning things through TV, through friends, or whatever the case is. So now that she's done this on her own, by the time she's 16, 17, she's like, I don't really need you like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think for some young girls, that does happen if the mom doesn't play her part. Because at the end of the day, the child is the child. It's the parent's role the mother's role to play her part. Regardless of what it is the child is doing, you're the parent. So you should have more grace than the child should have more grace. You know what I mean?
Right.
And unfortunately, I think some moms tend to fail doing that because they're so caught up in their self and their feelings and how it's affecting them, how they don't like the changes that's occurring, how they don't like the attitude, rather than approaching the daughter in a different way that may be more catered to her personality, especially since at that age too, you're starting to slightly find parts of yourself too, your interests that may not be what your mom is familiar with, and things of that nature. Yeah.
So, okay, that makes sense. We spoke about, the child, what the child has to experience, what the adolescent or teen has to experience. Now, into womanhood, where I've heard grown women in their 30s, sometimes in their 40s, talk about their mother, but say things such as, my mother's negative Nancy, nothing's ever good enough for her. Like, as soon as she's around, like, she just brings my energy down. And this is like adult women in their 20s and 30s. So how does that transition? Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, how did it last from childhood or adolescence or teenage years into adulthood? Like, why is it still happening, although the daughter is now a woman? That's the part that I really don't understand, because during the transition it's easy, for there to be conflict. I get it, it's a transition period, but troubling part for me is watching these mother and daughters, kind of can't stand each other even in adulthood.
There's multiple reasons I could think of. I think one, resentment. Like I mentioned earlier, if a young girl is going through a difficult moment in her life and she doesn't feel like her mom was there for her, the one woman who is supposed to be there first and always, if you feel like that person wasn't adequately there for you, wasn't supportive, and they were actually the one that was harsher on you than anyone else, you're gonna build some form of like confusion. Sometimes it may be anger, resentment, hurt. Like, all of these feelings leads you to a space of losing respect for that mother, actually, in my opinion. Another part of it is, as we grow up, we start to see our parents for who they are, right? You stop looking at them as like, that's mom and dad, although they're always going to be your mom and dad. But you stop looking at them as like, that's mom and dad, they make no mistakes. Oh, my hero, my idol, da da da. And you start seeing them as individuals. And so I think into womanhood, now that you're a woman, you understand things a little bit better. You've had your own experiences, and now you're questioning the approach your mom may have chosen. So now it may be a situation, maybe you don't respect her choices, and maybe you lose respect for her. And maybe she doesn't understand that and doesn't have boundaries. I think that's one of the biggest things is moms often don't know how to have boundaries with their daughters. They always view them as their daughters, regardless of what age it is, especially in our culture. Like, they don't see you as an adult ever. Like, they expect you to be the same person you were when you were 15 or when you were 10, and they hold on to the era that they liked you the most, and they carry that on. I've heard moms say comments like, yeah, when you were this age, this is how you were, what happened? Instead of embracing the new version of that woman. She's evolving. We're always evolving as people, but as women, we go through a lot of different phases. It's not just on I was a girl and now I'm a woman. There's so many different levels of womanhood that you encounter as you develop, that it will always evolve you into a newer version of yourself, right? And I don't think moms fully understand that, especially the ones who didn't do the work to understand themselves. So for them, they've done the same thing, the same way, consistently, never questioned, never tried to understand, you know what I mean? And they've just followed the footsteps of their mom. So they probably have a perception that you should be doing the same. And as first generation Americans now, we do things very different from them. We do things completely different, and they don't comprehend it. So you have the generational aspect of it, the cultural aspect of it, and then you have to add in the reality of, we're all our own people, right? Just because you're my parent doesn't mean I'm going to walk in your footsteps and be the same type of person you are. We're going to have different views. We're going to have different outlook on things. We're going to decide to raise our children differently. Like, there's so many different factors, and a lot of times I think moms do not have boundaries. They don't build the respect for their daughter that they would have for another woman that they just met or another woman that's just a friend.
Yeah.
They continue to treat them as a child daughter rather than my daughter is now a woman and she's her own person.
Right.
Let me gain a better understanding of who she is and respect her in that way, support her in that way, be present the way I need to be present. I think a lot of moms just expect their daughters to do what they would do or to do what they want them to do. And when that doesn't happen, you get the petty comments, you get the shade, you get the comments that make it seem like maybe the daughter's not doing good enough, or why would she do it this way? So it's just, honestly, I think it's really a lot of little things that plays into it. What was your question?
Why does it carry into adulthood? Is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I was saying resentment leads it into adulthood. I think that's a factor. Unhealed traumas causes it to lead into adulthood, because now you have two grown women. It's not like parent-child, adult-child kind of situation. You have two adults.
Yeah.
And they don't respect each other in the way that they should. I guess I could say, I don't know.
Does it matter if the mother's intentions are always well-meaning, or if she always means well?
That's my thing about intentions, because I feel like intentions, if it's well-meaning, it'll translate in that way. And if it doesn't, the person will communicate that their intentions are good.
Yeah.
Oftentimes in the situations you're discussing, there is no communication of intentions. So it's like, is the intentions good?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if we're in a debate and you take my words the wrong way, as your wife, I'm gonna come back to you and be like, my intentions wasn't to hurt you. Yeah. My intentions was to this, and we have a conversation about it. That's part of the issue, where parents do not take accountability and they do not apologize. I don't know about y'all culture, but the Haitian parents do not say sorry ever.
They cook for you.
Like, that's my life. Yeah. Literally, before my mom will say sorry, she will bring a bowl of soup joumou for me in the middle of summer, okay? Because she knows I like it.
Yeah.
So that's how they operate. So instead of being vocal about things, it's always like swept under the rug, or there's never a conversation. We let time pass and then we try to go back to normal. But now both of those individuals are carrying what happened in that past situation. So then when another situation happens, they bring all of that into it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, everyone's making assumptions. Everyone's bringing past hurt that wasn't communicated. So I think oftentimes that's why it leads into adulthood, because nothing that occurred in the teenage years or in the child years was discussed thoroughly enough to heal from it. Yeah. So now nobody's healed from it or had a conversation about it. Yeah. And you become adults and you're constantly evolving further apart. So you have two women growing in different directions and there's no communication within the relationship. Yeah. So what are you going to get when they're in the same room? Conflict, clashing. Yeah. And I think that's what happens.
So what would your advice be to people who are having that difficult time?
Bro, how about y'all give me advice? Okay, I need the advice. How about that? I don't know. I need the advice. I feel like
I mentioned this in a previous episode as well, but I think it was something like 60% or 50-something% of adult women said that they wish they had better communication with their mother. That communication is a factor. Is lacking. But yeah, I mean, if anyone out there has some advice as far as like how you deal with it. Any advice to other people, no matter what age group too, I think.
Yeah, no, especially now, because I'm a mom to a girl. Yeah. And those are things that, like, I think of this consistently, where I'm like, how am I going to tackle these issues when they arise? But I really do believe communication is a really big part of it. You have moms who play victim, because when you don't want to take accountability, what do? You deny, right? And if you don't deny, you just kind of like, you don't acknowledge the hurt that your child is trying to explain to you. So whether there is communication or there's not communication, when there is communication, if it's not effective communication, you still have these issues because the conversation went nowhere. We just left the conversation a little bit more confused and upset than we did before. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think if I had to give myself advice, well, you know what? Not even give myself advice, because I'm actively like learning as I grow, right? What I've done in general, like when I deal with these type of situations, distance works for me if I notice communication doesn't. If I notice every time I communicate, it goes nowhere, then I start to put the accountability on myself. And I think that's the difference between being a young girl and being a woman when it comes to this. As a young girl, you have no choice but to deal with certain things because you're in the same home. You know what I mean? This is your parent.
Yeah.
You got to deal with some stuff. As a woman, I understand that it is not my responsibility. So if things are not working out, I have to take accountability on my part. And one, it's your mom. So you always have grace as much as you possibly can. But if it becomes so unhealthy and toxic to the point where it's affecting you mentally and emotionally, and I say this in general across the board, that's your time, in my opinion, to set boundaries, create distance. If conversation is not working, distance is often necessary in order to let the person know that their actions are not having a positive effect on you.
Yeah. About the distance comment that you made, I actually learned that one of the best ways to deal with a lack of respect or disrespect is to create the distance. It's not to fight fire with fire, but kind of set time apart. So the person gets like, okay, this is not a way I can just continuously treat you.
Yeah.
But hopefully we do get some good feedback as far as
no, seriously, because y'all don't be commenting, and we actually need it. And I'm a mom to a girl now, so the moms who have daughters that are grown and have dealt with this, please comment, give any advice you can. And the daughters who have dealt with it, give comments as well on what you did, on what you're doing, or what you plan on doing with your daughters. That would be dope to get, because I'm taking all the advice I can. Because the time goes fast. So just to give you guys a few signs of what to look out for to see if maybe you're dealing with a situation or you have a parent or mother who is more on the toxic side or unhealthy. One, constant harsh criticism, controlling behavior, guilt tripping, and manipulation. For example, making you feel guilty when they have health issues is like an example of that. Humiliation, invalidation of your feelings and emotions, passive aggressiveness, such as the silent treatment, disrespect of personal boundaries, and a lack of reciprocation. So these are just a few. There are many more out there. But one thing I thought about as I'm reading this is also remembering, and I think I said this in the last episode, remembering that your mom is living for the first time.
Yeah.
This is her first time parenting. This is her first time being your mom, just like it's your first time being her daughter. So that helps to have a little bit more grace. So I would say that as well, having grace on them, because you don't know what they may have dealt with or what they may be going through as well. So sometimes it helps to have a little bit of grace on them. But at the end of the day, they're your parents. So it's not really your responsibility to fix them, but it's your responsibility to heal you.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. And we're out. Thank you for spending your time with us. We hope you gained some knowledge today that'll promote poise in your life. We have new episodes uploaded every Thursday right here, same place, same time. Until next time, you can follow us on Instagram at NOIRPOISED Podcast to stay connected. That's NOIRPOISED Podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback.
And remember, your wisdom is power.